purpose of this meeting is to conduct the business of Gettysburg Area School District. Public comment is welcome. Issues will be referred to the appropriate board, committee, or administrator. Comments will be summarized in the official board minutes, which will be available by contacting the business office. As a side note, there was an administrative conference prior to tonight's meeting regarding board development. Please take a moment to silence your cell phones and other electronic devices. Ms. Collins, all members are accounted for the meeting. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Notices and communication. The board would note that it's attached to your agenda. Basically, it consists of the current enrollment in each building. At this time, we'll do citizens' participation. Mr. Moyer will call individuals up. I believe we have 4 this evening in the order that they signed in this evening.
Good evening, everyone, and hopefully everyone had a great holiday season. We do have 4 people in our community who have been asked to address the board tonight. Just a reminder, I'll be calling you up, and just a reminder that the time limit is 5 minutes. Thank you. Mr. Todd Horner.
I'm not sure I like the twinkle in your eye, Dr. Moyer, when you looked at me and said 5 minutes. Well, you know, I'm standing here tonight after 12 years as a student in the district, 9 years as a vendor, about another 9 or so as an employee, and then 12 years serving on the school board. I believe this is the first time I've ever stood at this podium looking in that direction during a meeting. I'm Todd Warner, president of the Gettysburg Area Education Foundation. I'm here this evening to give you a few updates from the foundation and to announce the 3 Teacher Innovation and Challenge grants we will be funding for the second semester. First, I'd like to thank the board for continuing to fund the foundation director position. We are currently searching for a new director, you may know. After 3 very productive years helping to reestablish and shape the foundation, our first director, Rebecca Krishon, left the foundation to spend more time with her family. Rebecca continues to be an active supporter of the foundation. We also have an opening available on our board. We are currently looking for 1 school board member to take the seat which had been held by Carlos Wampler. If you're interested, I encourage you to let Mr. Hassinger or anyone else on the board know, because you can all get together, just choose one, and see if you want to join our board. We really greatly appreciate it. Moving forward, it's the foundation's plan to bring regular updates to you so you're aware of what we're accomplishing in our mission of enhancing student educational, social, and cultural experiences through community support. In the past year, the foundation was awarded nearly $2,000 in direct grants and facilitated over $14,000 in awards from the Robert C. Hoffman Charitable Endowment Trust. We raised nearly $7,000 through our events and affiliations. Most recently, the foundation was the recipient of a generous gift from Main Street Gettysburg. That gift was from the proceeds from the VIP parking area during the Gettysburg Christmas Festival. We also have a great partnership with the Adams County Community Foundation. ACCF holds 2 funds for our foundation. At this year's ACCF Giving Spree, our foundation was blessed with over $7,400 in gifts. When you add in the $10 coins placed in our piggy bank and our stretch pool earnings, we earned just over $8,800 from the Giving Spree alone. All funds earned at the Giving Spree have been placed in our Adams County Community Foundation endowment account, which now totals approximately $21,840. We should begin to see payout or proceeds from that endowment once we hit $25,000. So we're almost there. Some of you may be aware that Dr. Redding, when he retired, created a fund at the Adams County Community Foundation in his and his wife's name. They chose our foundation to be the sole distributor of the proceeds. The Larry and Janet Redding Fund is designated to support healthy and safe programs for kids. And I believe, Mr. Hunt, we had $250 or $500 from that, $500 from that. And I look at Mr. Hunt because he is also the treasurer of the foundation. So now on to the grants. We had 8 applications for this fall 2019 round. 1 which was a district-wide application, 2 from the middle school, and 5 from the high school. All 8 were very well written and merited consideration. Unfortunately, we're only able to award 3. So these $500 grants will be funded for the second semester of this year. From the middle school, a grant for flexible seating from Kate Carter. Also from the middle school, Art of the Roaring Twenties from Eric Ollinger. And from the high school, Warrior Academy Team Building from Catherine Orleski. So those funds, we have a foundation meeting Wednesday. We'll work with Mr. Hunt and get those transferred into the budget accounts. And I'll be letting everyone know tonight or tomorrow morning, depending when they check their email, who were the winners. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you so much for your time and letting me stand on this side of the table to talk at you for a few minutes. If you know anyone who you might feel might make a great foundation director, please direct them to the foundation webpage, which is part of the district website. Or they can contact me. Some of you have my information. If not, Dr. Parent and Mr. Hunt do for sure. And if you're interested in serving on the foundation board, please let Mr. President know, and he can let me know, and we'll get you running. So thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Mr. Warner, on behalf of the entire school board, the Gettysburg School community, thank you for your personal efforts and for the efforts of the Gettysburg Education Foundation. Fantastic support of the school district. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Warner.
Next, we have Michael Shestak. And Michael, I apologize if I messed up your last name.
That's all right, Mike works.
Gotcha.
Good evening, and yes, I am Mike Shestak. I live at 264 Baltimore Street, and I've been there for 30 years. And that's an important address because my backyard is Schoolhouse Alley and Wall Alley, which border your property. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Last time I was here was probably 6 months ago, and I asked you to adopt 2 letters, sort of like Sesame Street. The letter T for teamwork, NES for safety. I've added 2 other T's, and that's the truth and transparencies. I think they're important for you to work together. I'm pleased and support Mr. Orner's remarks because he understands teamwork, and he did when he sat up there. I stood here once in a while. I'm okay with what you're doing inside the school because test results show that. And I watch those, and I'm basically happy because it's not only you, it's the parents and the students themselves. And it's tough being a kid today with all the distractions out there on social media. But I am concerned about teamwork. And it has to do with the parking down there off Lefevre. Years ago, Borough Council talked about 88 parking meters down there. I've asked council where they are on that. Because I'm upset, because my tax dollars are subsidizing Mr. G's. I appreciate his ice cream. I've gone to Reed's Winery, okay? But there's people on the other side of Baltimore Street that fill up that parking lot. On Saturday or Sundays, I should run a valet parking at $2 a piece, because you're not. My tax dollars are subsidizing that. I'm not happy about that. I talked to Diane Weichert and 1 or 2 school board members about putting chains up there when it's not, you know, outside school activities. You gotta do something. My tax dollars are subsidizing that, and I'm not happy. Say what? I'm not happy, and I'm gonna continue to bang on you about that. The other thing is, understand you made some money because you sold the parking lot to the Presbyterian Church. That's okay. But take a look at the traffic that is caused. And that brings up my S for safety. I asked the borough, to make Wall Alley one way. Danny, and Robbie both agreed with that. The police chief didn't see a problem, and your principal from the elementary school didn't see a problem because there was never an accident there. I use that alley quite a bit. The new police chief will support one way. Grounds and maintenance, Robbie will support it if it's downhill for snowplows. There's no speed limit on either alley, and there's no school zone. People use that as a shortcut. If I'm coming up that hill and I can make it to the storm drain, that other son of a gun is backing up. But, Scott Pitzer and Borough Council didn't see that. The other thing is transparency, and teamwork and truth. Mr. President, I'm sorry to understand that, your mouth and tongue got yourself in trouble, that you had an apology. I'm a member of St. Francis Church, been a practicing Catholic for 50-some years. I found forgiveness in my heart, and I forgive you. I accept your apology, and I hope others on the board and people in this room also support that. You were truly elected, and you deserve to be where you're at. I support you, and I respect you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and we'll have Dr. Barron and his team look into the issues that you mentioned in the parking area and the traffic situation.
If I have a carryover minute, I've mentioned some of these things before, and the response has been silence. That's why I'm here tonight.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Jennifer Dumont.
Good evening, I'm Jenny Dumont. I live at 74 East Water Street, and I'm here tonight because I believe very strongly that Mr. Hassinger needs to resign as a school board member and president of the school board. I was a direct witness to his Facebook remarks on the night that President Trump was impeached, and I saw not only did he insult my friend Charles Strass, but he also brought religion into it. This was reported by the Times, and Mr. Hassinger's response was that this was a mistake, that he used voice to text to create his remarks. I do not find that to be a plausible account. I did see the original remarks and noted that they were edited, and I would ask Mr. Hassinger, if indeed you saw something wrong with your remarks and edited them, why did you not make them less offensive? I don't believe for 1 minute that you were using voice to text and that you are remorseful for what you said. I think that this improper conduct and the subsequent lying to cover it up is unacceptable, and I would ask that you resign, and that if you do not, that the rest of the school board act to dismiss you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And last but not least, Mr. William Hewitt.
I don't move as fast as I used to. My name is William Hewitt, and I live in Franklin Township. For 7 years, I sat where you are sitting now on the board. I wish to congratulate the new members who have stepped up. I wrote a letter to the editor last week. I would encourage you to read it. I'll email a copy to you. I wish to share with you some of the things I learned during that 7 years. There are primarily two types of directors. The first type wish to look good by assuming the appearance of public service. They always vote aye, and if they ask a question, it's not a challenging one. The second type is those who wish to do the hard work, ask penetrating questions, and vote when they are comfortable with their position, whether yay or nay. You get to choose which kind of board director you wish to be. Before I was elected, I also got some excellent advice from a previous director. Never trust anyone. Yes, I know that's cynical, but regrettably true. If you've not already been misled, you probably will be. You will only be given enough information to support the proposal in front of you. For example, if you're selecting key personnel, you may only get one nominee. If you want more than one nominee, you're gonna have to demand it. I was thinking rhetorically regarding integrity and character, but now we have a case in point, the reorganization meeting in December. You new guys got taken advantage of. So the next thing I learned is know the law and know your policies. I think right in front of the president there is a copy of Robert's Rules. It's been there for many years. GASD's policy states that you'll use Robert's Rules. One member chose to ignore the scripted agenda and suggest nominees make a speech after the nominations were made. Let me quote Robert's Rules, quote, "Close the nominations, purpose, to close the nominations and vote immediately," unquote. There are no speeches. So in one action, 2 directors broke the agenda and fractured Robert's Rules. Both actions are against their oath to support the policies of the district. It's, in my opinion, from the video, this process seemed contrived and rehearsed, with one candidate appearing ready for the opportunity, while Mr. Hassinger was not. One member used the excuse for this breach, quote, "for the sake of new members." Both these directors took advantage of Mr. Hassinger's absence. Both took advantage of new members' lack of experience and knowledge regarding Robert's Rules. Frankly, Mr. Hassinger is owed an apology, and the new board members are also owed an apology for being used as an excuse to begin this charade. If there's anyone here that should resign, it's not Mr. Hassinger. I'd at this time like to approach the board. Is that permissible?
What did you say?
I have here open records by Canoa request. One's going to the district. One is going to LIU 12. One's going to Hack. One's going to Ms. Pratt. One's going to Dr. Soliday. I think that'll cover most of the devices. I'll report back to you if necessary. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Hewitt, thank you.
Moving forward with the agenda, we have our routine approvals, which include 5.1 through and including 5.9. Have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Question?
Actually, I have 2 corrections. On January 4th, I emailed 2 corrections, one for the reorganization meeting minutes, 5.2, one for 5.3, regular board meeting minutes. They're not yet reflected in the board docs minutes, but I've had a conversation with Jane and things will be updated. And I'm not quite sure how to handle that, actually.
Well, I would think if they're not going to be if they're going to be updated, if I'm not correct, we can't vote on those particular minutes to approve without seeing the updated correction. Would that be correct?
The change to the reorganization meeting minutes is concerning the election of the treasurer. I know that I was not at the meeting, but I'm 100% certain when I reviewed the draft minutes, that action was there. And for some reason, it does not appear in this last one, so that action would be inserted, made part of the record that Ms. Pratt was elected as treasurer of the school district during that reorganization meeting. So that is what appears to be a software omission, because I know it was there, and we would reinsert that back into that record.
Would it not be corrective action because Ms. Pratt did email me with what she believes to be the corrections? If she would share that, under no objection, we could incorporate that and still approve this as a whole.
And that's, for that situation, this correction, as we've stated here verbally, could be included in the action, and that set of minutes could be approved. The other change, I'm not sure of.
I have a copy of the minutes, and it states here that she was nominated and voted in unanimously as treasurer. Right here. Dr. Moyer opened the floor for nominations for board treasurer. Mrs. Pratt nominated herself. Mrs. Hodges seconded the nomination. Nominations were closed, and Ms. Pratt won the nomination, the unanimous vote.
And that's what I recall, but we're not seeing it in the version that we have tonight.
I pulled this from board docs before we came here.
Then it appeared again. But earlier today, it was not in there, and it should have been.
I did check today, and it was in today. I checked.
Okay, that would be one particular thing. I believe Ms. Pratt also had a second item that wanted needed clarification or correction related to the minutes.
Yes, and actually, if we can go back to 5.2, the reorganization, I was most comfortable with adding, for clarity's sake, that with no nominations coming forward, Ms. Pratt self-nominated. I actually think that could be an important distinction. But in regular meeting 9, building program report, there is a sentence that I would like, again, for clarity and content to update. And it would start with, she noted that 6 candidates ran. I'd like to add, and 5 of the 6 were elected. And ask that the board consider nominating to add the 6th candidate to fill the vacant position.
I unfortunately was not here. I was remote. I don't know that we're looking at anything of material except for wording. Would that not be correct?
Correct.
I transcribed the video, and what is in the minutes is reflective of what you said.
Yes, and I'm not going to argue that, Michael, but what I'm saying is I think it's important for clarity's sake that the point is lost in the minutes, that the reason for suggesting the board nominate the 6th candidate was because she in fact was a candidate.
If it didn't occur at the meeting, it would be improper to add it to the record, but it would be proper to add a comment to these minutes to clarify your comments at that prior meeting, so we could do that.
Well, it did happen at the meeting. In fact, I had prepared with Steve. And in part, it's really for anyone in the public who might read our minutes. It's interesting to be misconstrued at times. And I think it's really important, again, to show that it was not about favoritism of a particular person. It was really to honor, as I said that evening, it was to honor the voting public. They gave that candidate almost 3,000 votes. So Kenny, are you more comfortable with?
I understand what you're saying, so I'm comfortable with either way at this point. I think it's for clarification of what your motion or explanation of why you made a motion, and whether or not, and I apologize for not understanding completely, because are they tape recorded? Because you can maybe lose 1 or 2 of those words that weren't reflected. I know that Mike had said he'd watched the video. I personally don't have an issue with it being amended now and being voted on. It's a matter of several words as to whether or not to add clarity to why you were putting the motion forward.
Thank you, I would appreciate that.
I believe on that particular item, if we're making an amendment, we're going to have to do a specific vote on that item. So if that's the case, I would like to separate that particular, what is it, 5 point? I would separate 5.2 and incorporate all the other items under question still with the motion, the 2 motions, and vote on them and come back to 5.2. Would that be proper?
Actually, 5.2 was the issue with the treasurer, which I think everybody's agreed on. 5.3 was this other issue. Am I correct? So 5.3 would be the one that would be.
Well, we have a motion, a second on this. What we'd have to do is eliminate 5.3 from the motion and do that separately.
So I think
don't have a second, I have a motion.
there's a motion and a second to approve all of the routine approvals.
We only had the motion.
Well, Kenny motioned to accept, and I seconded that.
A president wouldn't normally make a motion. Al made a motion.
Yeah.
You second? We didn't see that. We
Yeah.
have that now, thank you.
So we have a first and second on the whole list of routine approvals. could the routine approval still be approved as a group with the edits to those two items?
Since I made the motion, I have no objection to including those edits.
Notwithstanding then, if that, I'm not hearing an objection to separate or to,
And the second motion agrees?
well, Mike made the initial motion.
I didn't make any motion.
He seconded.
Second, I'm sorry.
The original, I seconded the original motion to accept.
Is he all right with the change as, the clarification as?
I would just like to make a statement. So I understand there's a lot of stuff that goes on in discussion, lots of discussion that does not get captured in the minutes. But the people that capture the information and make our minutes do a very good job. If people are worried about clarification and exactly what is said, this is a public meeting which is videotaped and is available for public consumption. And again, just in the interest of being respectful of everyone's time, that is why I brought this up. So I second accepting the original motion.
I do have a question about 5.6 MOU, if we're ready to move on to that.
Still routine approvals?
Mhm. May I ask a question on 5.6? The MOU, Gettysburg Area Education Association, MOU. So the question, I'm just curious, which entity is making the request to consolidate the boys and girls and coaching positions into one?
The district from athletics made the request to go to a single coach with more position in track with position coaches, and then the bargaining unit agreed to the change.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions? Al?
Yes.
Kathleen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Informational items that are listed in your agenda are scheduled without opposition to be for the next meeting's agenda. They include 7.1, the school calendar for 2020 through 2021, 7.2, policy 006.1. This particular policy is the one we discussed back prior to December 3rd, reorganization, allowing board members under certain conditions to communicate via electronic communications, so their participation in the board would be permitted. 7.3 and 7.4, I'm going to allow Dr. Perrin, but I also understand that Wayne's in the building, and maybe Wayne would be better to address the engineering services, if you don't mind, sir.
So, yeah, so the first one first, the calendar. The calendar's pretty much, the current calendar moved forward a year. The only difference are 2 half days to build in some professional development time. So that's the only change there. And then the draft policy, you can see it as it's written. And then, Wayne, you just want to just kind of summarize both of those items?
Sure. Thank you. 7.3 is listed as professional engineering services. 1 has to do with this building. Cooling system in this building is operated from a 50-ton air-cooled chiller that's been in place since 2004, and it's really, at the end of the day, it's been a lemon ever since it was installed. There's multiple problems with it. Last summer, we had significant problems with it, which prompted the district to take a look at the building itself as a whole, and what should be done before we recommended that we invest the money to replace that 50-ton chiller. So we went through that process. It's gonna be a significant amount of money, as you guys can imagine, to either completely renovate the HVAC system in this building and/or kind of piecemeal it. So what we've decided, and what the engineers have helped us decide, this point, it'd be best just to replace the chiller and continue to use it as it is. The next best option to us would allow us to use the new chiller in the future. So if we were able to come up with the funding to do a minor HVAC renovation to this building, this particular chiller replacement would still work. So we wouldn't be throwing away money that wouldn't be able to be utilized in the near future. It's going to be approximately $90,000 to replace a chiller. So what we'd like to do is engage Barton Associates to do a design for us. That design would be used for bidding purposes, and also they would come back during the installation of the chiller to make sure that the contractor and manufacturer provided exactly what we asked for. So there's a $9,400 charge for that. So that's 7.3. 7.4 is the professional engineering services for the high school. Many of you know, and if you've looked at the capital budget, the high school renovation project, Lincoln Elementary School project are right on the cusp of getting done. Matter of fact, in spring of last year, the board agreed that we would accelerate the high school renovation project because of the amount of failing components that I'm having over there. And it's a situation what I just talked about, we're spending money that may not be available on components that may not be available to use once this renovation is done. So what the district's done is we've interviewed 3 engineering firms to do this work, and not only interviewed the firms, looked at their credentials. I spent a good amount of time talking to local school districts that have utilized the firms that we interviewed. By far, Barton Associates came out on top. So I'm recommending that we move forward with a negotiation process with Barton to nail down the fees for both high school and Lincoln. It's pretty much where we're at this point.
These were information. These are information items tonight. There are items that came through also the Finance, Buildings and Grounds subcommittee prior to this meeting. That group's supportive of the work. If the board's comfortable with following the plan that Wayne laid out, if somebody would be interested in moving both those items to action tonight, it would help with their timeline, I would assume, correct?
Absolutely.
So moved. Second.
Question?
Sure.
Hearing no questions, we'll vote. Kathleen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Kenny? Yes.
That moved into action. We need another vote to approve, right? Technically.
In the future, we recommend that a motion be worded so that it is moved to action and approved, and to make it easier for you.
All right. So we just moved it to action, so just vote one more time for, somebody needs to make a motion to approve.
I move to approve item 7.3 and item 7.4, the professional engineering services for the HVAC systems.
A second.
Question? Carrie?
Yes.
Amy Beth?
Yes.
Timon?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Mr. President, just quickly for the benefit of the new members, item 7.2, it's been the policy of this board when considering and adopting policies to bring a draft policy to one meeting and then have it acted on at the following meeting. And now, I'm not saying that you need to, but it's certainly not inappropriate to ask questions, to comment on it now if you choose. It's more, to me, it's more than just an information item. You should have an opportunity. And between now and the next meeting, if you want to shoot an email to the the chair of the policy committee and say, what about this, what about that? Will the committee consider this? Or that would be appropriate as well.
Thank you. But before we do that, I'd like to say that I also vote yes on the last. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. We understand this is your first meeting, so.
I'll be changing my format in the future.
I actually do have some suggestions, and I'm happy, Al, just to forward those to you, if that would be helpful. Thank you. And I also want to genuinely thank your committee for working on this so expeditiously. Really appreciate that.
Any other questions on the informational items? Board committee reports?
Mr. President, the Finance Facilities Committee met on December 19th. We just were discussing the two items that occurred there, and it had to do with the professional engineering services for the HVAC systems in this building as well as at the high school and Lincoln. So besides that, we also had Michael Lilius, he's the managing director at RBC Capital Markets. He provided us an overview about the current long-term debt and several scenarios for management of expected debt to fund the upcoming HVAC projects at the high school and Lincoln Elementary. So in documents that have been shared with the board, there are several scenarios. It's worth the time to look at each of those scenarios because there will become a time when we actually make a decision about the planned debt. With Wayne's return, the 5-year capital plan was also updated, and that document's available also online. And we at least touched a draft of the 2021 items that will be a part of improvements, and that is a draft, so it will be polished and published shortly, so we can think about that during the budgeting process. The next meeting of the Finance Facilities Committee meeting will be I believe, third Thursday of the month.
Thanks, Carrie. And then in relationship to policy committee, as Dr. Perrin mentioned, there were minor changes to the school calendar from last year for the 2021 year. A little bit more time for staff development. The calendar has been vetted by several different stakeholders within the school community, so I'm confident that that's about ready to go. And then secondly, because we had a situation where we had a board member that was on vacation and so on, we have a policy, 006.1. We've looked at several other school districts and what they've utilized, so we have something that we think we're pretty confident with. But if Kathleen and anyone else has any suggestions along the way, we're happy to consider those. And as Mr. McQuaid mentioned, when these come up for approval, it's a draft, and then we can still make recommendations and changes to that before the final approval. So we're happy to take suggestions and constructive criticism on those. Thank you.
If anybody has any comments, as Kathleen said, if you could, when sending them to Al, if you could copy Jane and I on that as well, just so that we're all on the same page.
Gene, would you remind us, the next policy committee meeting is it next Tuesday? January 14th, Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Any further board committee reports? Okay. Building and program reports?
Good evening. On Friday afternoon, one of the 2 days we were back in school last week, we had our reading specialist, ESL teachers, and special ed teachers in this room receiving follow-up training on our Acadience data management system that we're utilizing this year. So we had just entered our mid-year data before the holiday break, and tomorrow is an extended professional development day for our elementary teachers. So the teams that were in training on Friday will be leading those teachers through the reports, looking at the data, making instructional decisions for the grade level, and then they'll plan flexible small groups for instruction and hopefully as well have time then to actually do the planning for the instruction that will occur for those students and flipping a progress monitoring schedule to make sure those students are on trajectory to meet the end of the year goals. Already looking at mid-year and end of the year. No snow.
No snow.
No snow.
A little bit tomorrow, maybe. Not enough to throw off the operation, hopefully. We're getting obviously close to the end of the first semester, so some of the secondary courses are kind of wrapping up, and mid-year is kind of when that semester break is for the courses that run by semester. And just as a reminder, the first snow makeup day is on the calendar, and it's the Friday that's the snow makeup day. Hopefully, we won't have any weather events prior to then, and that'll be a day off for students and teachers. Obviously, if we have a weather event prior to that, it becomes a school day. And the Martin Luther King Day holiday is also approaching as well. We continue our work with the Gettysburg Area Leadership Academy, getting ready, working with Ms. Herb, Mr. Lusk, and Matt McFarland on working on January's session with the teachers that are involved in the Leadership Academy. And I'm also at the same time working with folks from the state with regards to ways of trying to figure out how to generalize this beyond kind of the Gettysburg School District and beyond kind of our region. So so it's exciting work. The folks that are dedicated to it are doing a really nice job. And at this point, we've met with all of the various members and their principals to kind of design a program for them the rest of the year, and I'm excited to see how that turns out. So thanks to everybody for that support. And Dr. Fuller from Penn State has been in touch, actually just today, working with the different principals and different organizational levels on working on surveys for the spring, so we can capture some data, qualitative data in regards to how we're doing with students and teachers and parents. So lots going on. There always is. Stay warm, and we'll take the no precipitation as much as we can get. Thanks.
You're welcome. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, January 21st. We'll be starting at an earlier time, 5:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. meeting will start. We have 4 candidates that submitted timely applications for consideration for the 2-year vacant seat for the Gettysburg Area School Board. As it looks now, each of the candidates will be given approximately 20 minutes apiece with a question from each of the board members that sits here today. And after which, if a candidate is nominated and seated, we will start our regular school board meeting promptly at 7 o'clock. Is there anything else that any board member would have to bring to the attention of the board before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Do I have a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We stand adjourned.
Right, yeah. We had discussed that in the policy meeting, that it might be just a little too convenient. I've done it before, with my other districts, and, it's, no one really agrees sometimes it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay, thank
Yeah, it will. No, no, joke's on. That's what I'm saying.